Hi, I'm Judge Michael Warren of the Oakland County, Michigan Circuit Court. I'm a former member of the State Board of Education. I'm the Education Chair of Cornerstone Schools, a great set of schools in the city of Detroit. And I'm also the co-founder of Patriot Week. And I'm very, very pleased to be here today to discuss with you the Gettysburg Address. It's an essential part of American history, a fundamental pivot point in how we think of ourselves as Americans. And it's the bridge between the American Revolution and what we think about equality and our ability and our right to self-govern today. To understand it, we have to understand a little bit about where it's given, and who gave it, which was Abraham Lincoln, of course, and he gave it in 1863 at the field in Gettysburg, which was where the great battle happened, a pivotal battle in the Civil War. And he was not the primary speaker. He was not the keynote. I'm not going to say he was there as an afterthought, but people weren't really expecting a big speech out of him. And in fact, he gave a very short speech. It was under 300 words. And yet it is one of the most eloquent and fundamentally important speeches in the course of American history. Because again, it bridges the Revolution to what became the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the United States Constitution, fundamentally altering our understanding of ourselves and American history and really world history. Now, Lincoln stood on the shoulders of the Founding Fathers. And to really understand the Gettysburg Address in Lincoln's context, we have to go back to the Revolution and we have to go back to the Declaration of Independence, who was written by this guy here, Thomas Jefferson, immortalized as a bobblehead. You might remember him more likely through a portrait like this one, but however you view him, he was awfully important. And he wrote the words that would be echoed and embraced by Lincoln. And to understand those words, let's listen to them. Hopefully you've gotten this in elementary school or earlier in middle school, but I tend to find that there isn't a lot of time spent on those words, and I want to spend just a couple minutes on it. But the key passage that we want to discuss begins as this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to establish new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Those words from the Declaration of Independence were revolutionary in 1776. They were revolutionary in 1863, and they remain revolutionary today. And those key words define what makes America America. It's not Miley Cyrus and her twerking. It's not football or baseball or Twitter or any of these kinds of things. It's those founding first principles embedded in the Constitution. And Lincoln harkens back to those. So let's take a quick moment to explain what those are. We. What does we mean? We hold these truths, right? What's the we? Well, the we's the people. Before 1776, there wasn't a people. There was a king. And he dribbled out privileges to his subjects. We were not citizens. We were subjects. We did not have rights. We had privileges. In 1776, we said, no, the people are in charge. And so we will delegate authority to the government. But we will still be in charge. So we make the law. How do we do that? We elect representatives, the Congress, and the state legislature. And we enforce the law. How do we do that? We elect the governor or the president of the United States to enforce the law. And that idea that we are in charge and that we govern through a representative republic is key and essential to understanding where Lincoln comes from in connection with the Gettysburg Address. The Declaration also says we hold these truths to be self-evident. So we believe in truth. And today there's a lot of cynicism about truth, but the Founding Fathers clearly believed in truth, as did Lincoln. And not only did they believe in truth, some of the truth was self-evident which means that you don't have to explain it. You don't have to have a discussion about it. It's just obviously true. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. When it refers to men, they mean mankind. Created equal is a radical concept in 1776. It means you're born and you're at the same status as anybody else born in the world. And that's very unique because up until then, people lived in societies that were based on inequality, based on your race, based on your gender, based on your class, based on all kinds of other things. There were divisions and hierarchies, and that rips it down and says, no, we're all equal. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In other words, you're born with a bundle of rights like free speech, the free exercise of religion, free press, right to assemble, and just by being a human being, you've got these rights. That's an awesome, again, understanding. They're not privileges, which means that the government can take them away whenever they want. You're born with them. They're inherent within you. And this lays out the American ideal. Now, obviously, it was done in breach. For example, inequality. We know that there was a proposition of equality, but there were slaves. Women didn't have the right to vote. You had the right to own property. So there was social hierarchies that were established. So we didn't necessarily fulfill that proposition, but we believed in the proposition. And what happens in the Gettysburg Address is, remember the historical circumstances, that most of the war, although the generating kind of underlying cause is slavery, most of the war is fought over the idea of a union, and that we need to preserve the nation, and that you have these seceding states, and we're not going to allow them to leave because they are violating this idea of the union, and we need to keep the country together. And what Lincoln says is, no, this is about equality and self-government. In the first line of the Gettysburg Address, he says, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So he lays it out. That's what this war is about. And because he says, after he lays out that proposition, that we are now engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. So he's saying right then and there, no, this war is not about union. It's about equality and self-government. And then he has some eloquent phrases, which you can read the Gettysburg Address. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing. And he goes to the idea that people aren't going to remember what he says, which is obviously untrue. And he says, it is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from those honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause which gave them the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Again, this is transformational. It's not about the union. It's about preserving a country of, by, for the people. And that proposition then becomes the pole star of the Civil War, and becomes embedded and fulfilled in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. After Lincoln is alive for some, but not for all those amendments. 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment gave equality and due process to all people, and the 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote. And this fundamentally transformed American society. And it happens because Lincoln's able to bridge the Revolution and the Declaration of Independence to what's happening in the Civil War. And that's why the Gettysburg Address is such an important document. Thank you.